A bill barring FoodShare recipients from using funds for soda and candy is headed to the governor's desk. Our Wisconsin State Capitol Bureau Chief Vanessa Kelson breaks down this legislation.
There are 700,000 Wisconsinites who rely on FoodShare or SNAP benefits. On Tuesday, the Wisconsin State Senate passed a bill with bipartisan support to ban sugary purchases with those FoodShare dollars, but also provide more state support to keep up with the federal requirements for the program.
You know what? Kids from families that qualify for FoodShare might deserve a little candy and soda now and then, too.
During Tuesday's floor session, some Democrats spoke out against the bill for restricting the diets of people who may live in food deserts.
We all want to support healthy foods, but micromanaging the grocery purchases of low-income folks is not the way to accomplish that.
Meanwhile, proponents of the sugar ban say tax dollars should not be used to fund unhealthy habits. The bill also funds new positions at the Wisconsin Department of Health Services, positions Governor Evers has been pushing for. Last summer, President Donald Trump signed the Big Beautiful Bill, which expanded work requirements for FoodShare recipients and increased the stakes for errors on SNAP paperwork. If Wisconsin's error rate on SNAP applications hits 6%, the state could face fines between $68.5 million and $205.5 million a year. That's why there was a push to add more DHS staff to catch mistakes before they cost Wisconsin. Wisconsin DHS did not respond to my request for comment on this bill. From the Wisconsin State Capitol, Vanessa Kelson.
Vanessa, thank you. Governor Evers has indicated he will likely sign the bill into law. In a statement, Evers says, quote, "It was important that we get this bill done to help make sure Wisconsinites don't have to fork over hundreds of millions of dollars more in penalty fees to the Trump administration every year."